COVID-19 now being commonplace, different countries' reactions to the outbreak, along with their successes and failures, are known to the public. Needless to say, America has been the laughingstock of the world when it comes to COVID. In fact, a real-time graph of confirmed COVID deaths shows America's being so high it goes off the graph. Not enough masks, late responses to closing and early reopenings, completely ignoring scientific research, and more have all caused the U.S.'s numbers of COVID cases to skyrocket while other countries have seen a recent downturn.
I think we have it very well under control. We have very little problem in this country at this moment.
Even countries that were reaching record highs in cases, such as Italy, have seen a recent decline. Why is this? Besides the obvious facts that we listed earlier, are there deeper reasons as to why America is handling the COVID outbreak so poorly? Florida is the new hotspot of the world, with there being tens of thousands of new cases every day in mid-July. Now, the easiest thing to do would be to blame Trump and call it a day. And trust me, he is nowhere near innocent in this recent spike of cases. But in order to find out why people are acting the way they are in light of a global pandemic, I argue we should delve into the psychology behind American culture. Americans have been irresponsible, to say the least, when it comes to COVID.
Say cheese, you're in Costco not wearing your mask, refusing to wear your mask.
Yes, call the police.
Despite new CDC guidelines being mandated throughout the summer, America has only seen increases in cases with slight dips. This is because many Americans have been blatantly disobeying these new rules. House parties, beach reopenings, and simply not wearing masks have become commonplace despite scientists claiming this will only increase cases.
Say cheese, you're in Costco not wearing your mask, refusing to wear your mask.
Do people not care about themselves or others when dealing with a deadly disease? Well, yeah, a lot of people just lack basic empathy. But why are people acting this way? According to PhD Mariana Pogosyan, how we act is heavily based on our cultures. She states, as a system of meaning and shared beliefs, culture provides a framework for our behavioral and affective norms. In other words, culture has an effect on how we act, as both a society and individual. This begs the question, how has culture impacted how Americans act? I would argue that American culture is based on the values of stubbornness, nationalism, and rebellion. These can all be perceived as pretty negative, but there are positive traits we value as a society as well. Regardless if we hold these values on a high enough pedestal to take the correct action is another discussion, however. Freedom, justice, liberty, etc. are all things that we value as a culture. The words are even on our currency, so that has to mean something. But it seems as though, especially in light of recent events, we hold these positive values on the same pedestal as these negative values. These could be accredited to our past. America is a country that was founded on rebellion. The Boston Tea Party and the escape from British taxation was a stepping stone for America's independence. Ever since then, it has been told that if the citizens feel as though they need to take action, they can. Freedom of speech, right to protest, and so on are examples of how we value the idea of rebellion. This goes hand in hand with stubbornness. As a country, we feel as though citizens have the right to be fed up. We pride ourselves in taking action against the majority. After all, the 4th of July is a holiday people shoot fireworks for in the name of justice, rebellion, and sticking it to the man. This has garnered a sense of pride in America that is commonly referred to as nationalism, or identification with one's own nation and support for its interests, especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations. Nationalism has been critical to America's growth over the years. Through propaganda during the 2 World Wars, the Vietnam War, the Red Scare, and even during early America, nationalism has been used as a necessary way to get the public on the side of the home team. The sense of pride is most commonly used nowadays to garner an audience for a political candidate or certain political beliefs. Speaking to nationalism is an easy way to get the public on your side, and is commonly used by calling something American or un-American. Clearly, nationalism has a way of coercing the public to think or act a certain way in times of unrest, and along with rebellion and stubbornness, it is easy to see these values in everyday life, for better or worse. While some people are using our American culture positively, such as the Black Lives Matter movement utilizing their right to protest and a sense of rebellion, there are equally negative ways Americans are using their sense of rebellion. It is a known fact that people do not like to feel out of control. A sense of power and freedom is something we as humans crave. Therefore, when any form of restrictions are put on people, especially those who have stronger feelings of nationalism, they feel an overwhelming sense to rebel. This is why so many reacted so poorly to the stay-at-home order. So much so that people began protesting living inside of their own home. They've been doing it up to this point, so why is it such a big deal now? People feel like rebelling when given constraints, which when emphasized by the ideas of nationalism and other core American values, result in such ridiculous protests such as refusing to live inside of your own homes. This sense of rebellion extends to any of the new guidelines put in place. Masks, the 6 feet apart rule, closing down different shops. People don't like change. And with a country built on the foundations of rebellion and stubbornness, it is no wonder why Americans have been so irresponsible with these new rules. As stated before, many Republican states have been a breeding ground for COVID, and this is no surprise considering Trump's actions and dialect. Trump's tagline, "Make America Great Again," is a direct call to nationalism, which has clearly acted as a strong tool to garner political attention and support. Trump's rise to fame directly correlated with the rise of nationalists in America, meaning anything Trump claims to be American as good and anything as un-American as bad. This appeal to nationalism becomes dangerous when Trump can easily affect the public's perception of anything by calling something American or not. In fact, after his State of the Union address in 2018, Trump called Democrats un-American, saying they clearly don't care about our country.
Positive news. Like that, they were like death. And un-American. Un-American.
Although this happened years ago, Trump has been actively making the Democratic Party out to be the enemy, and therefore un-American. This is problematic when Democratic Party members have clearly shown their care for COVID-19 by the precautions they are willing to take. While Trump refuses to wear a mask, Biden's commercials pop up whenever I'm watching a YouTube video saying to wear one. This then makes Trump supporters believe that Republicans are American and Democrats are not, and by extension their beliefs. This has resulted in Trump supporters seeing masks as un-American and therefore unusable and oppressive.
Democrats.
With such a strong sense of nationalism surging through the party supporters, it is no wonder that with Trump's exploitation of our core values of nationalism, rebellion, and stubbornness, that his supporters have refused to take part in such un-American actions like wearing a mask and social distancing. By being able to switch the public's perception of anything by appealing to nationalism, Trump himself has become somewhat of an admirable ruler in the eyes of Republicans. I mean, a big blonde white old businessman in a suit is probably the most representative of capitalist America there is, so it is no surprise that his supporters praise him so much. It is unlike anything we have seen. There have been an incredible amount of Trump merchandise being made that markets Trump as some kind of character. His followers praise him to an unprecedented degree, so much so that he's able to get away with blatantly racist and sexist behavior. However, that is not something I'll be discussing here because that can be a video of its own. But I will say that this sort of celebrity status has made his word an incredible tool in manipulating the public. His followers will do anything he says, as Trump, as a being, represents the values of nationalism and stubbornness. This is incredibly problematic when Trump refuses to listen to any scientific-based arguments and spouts his own answers in blatant lies, backing it up by claiming he has a, quote, natural instinct for science. He has said that drinking household chemicals will cure COVID, resulting in numerous deaths by poison. Trump's complete lack of understanding when it comes to scientific evidence and refusal to ever be in the wrong, stubbornness, has resulted in numerous deaths and lies, such as claiming early on that the cases will be down to zero in no time. People listen to actions just as much as his words, and Trump's refusal to wear a mask and confident attitude towards the virus has only pushed his supporters to disobey the rules. Trump's nonchalant attitude and lies when it comes to COVID has only made his supporters less open to scientific-based arguments, resulting in a surge of outbreaks in Republican states. An example of this is when Trump was recently asked, quote, "The CDC says if everybody wore a mask for 4 to 6 weeks, we could get this under control. Do you regret not wearing a mask in public from the start, and will you consider a national mandate that people need to wear masks?" Trump responded with, "No. I want people to have a certain freedom, and I don't believe in that. No." He continued to say, and I don't agree with the statement that if everybody wear a mask, everything disappears. By associating masks with the lack of freedom, Trump plays to his supporters' values of rebellion. Anything that is oppressive is worth rebelling against, even if the oppressive thing is saving millions of lives in the bare minimum of what is required to eliminate a global pandemic. From what we have already listed, it is undeniable that COVID has become a political issue. Through an effort to calm the public, Trump's demonization of the Democratic Party and taking a very relaxed stance on COVID has changed the perception of the virus. The Democratic Party is now seen as a side that sees the pandemic as a more legitimate threat, while the Republican Party is viewed as a side that sees the virus as no big deal. This political split has turned the virus from a global uniter, with many commercials now using the phrase,
"We are all in this together,"
to a national divider. The easiest way to make an issue controversial is by making it political, as seen with topics such as Black Lives Matter. The movement has become political, with many generalizing the Republican Party as the racist side and the Democratic Party as the non-racist side. By making COVID into a political issue, the ability to unite our split country, which is necessary to make a full recovery from COVID, becomes that much harder. As stated previously, we all know that America has been doing terribly. which we have now said is because of our cultural norms, a leader that manipulates the public, and a political divide that leaves our nation unable to unify. It is no surprise then to see other countries without these problems to be doing so well. Japan has been incredibly successful with their fight against the virus, and when looking at their cultural norms, it is easy to see why. Japan has a culture defined by respect and manners. When people of Japan are asked to do something, listening and obeying is the polite and socially correct thing to do. Not only this, but mask wearing is also a part of Japanese culture. Ever since the flu season, Japanese citizens have been voluntarily donning their mask in the name of public and personal health. These have all allowed Japan to stun nationwide statistics with such low mortality rates and confirmed cases, despite the fact they've had a less strict quarantine than other countries and an incredibly dense population per capita. However, Japan is not perfect. They have seen a spike in cases as of late, and some even speculate that their numbers are not completely accurate. But what about a country that is thriving? New Zealand has recently marked 100 days with no new COVID cases. Of course, their location geographically helped, but they do have a very strong tourist culture and college students that are routinely inviting new people. How then do they manage to successfully, for the foreseeable future, eliminate COVID? There are many answers to this, such as the fact they started implementing quarantine far earlier than other countries. Although their strict protocols and location have helped, one of New Zealand's strongest weapons against COVID is their sense of political unity. New Zealand is a democratic parliament that is said to be very politically stable. The sense of political unity keeps the population from viewing the pandemic as good or bad, left or right, Democratic or Republican, but rather simply as a virus that needs to be wiped out through everybody's help. America fails at having a politically unified country or any sense of cultural respect, resulting in an empire turned to ruins at the hand of an invisible threat. So what does this all mean? Am I advocating against America's sense of freedom? Am I telling people they shouldn't have the right to rebel, protest, or voice their opinions? Of course not. I'm not tyrannical. But I would like to put into question what we value as a society. Do we really value politics more than the health of hundreds of thousands of people? Do we really think that living in our homes more than we are used to is enough of a spark to put lives at risk? Rather than reject freedom, I simply recommend we look towards other countries and see what works. Unity, science, rules, and respect are all cornerstones of countries that successfully handle COVID. I think we should take some time to think about what is truly our biggest priority.